Hi, horticulturist Tina Sutherland Kane here for In the Garden. Today we're talking about indoor flowering houseplants, and they're really easy to grow. It's gray outside, wintertime, we all want to bring a little spring indoors. So today I'll show you a few of my favorites. African violets are one of my favorites because they're really easy to grow. People think they can be a little finicky, but if there's a few simple rules that you need to follow, and you should have complete success with African violets. And the first rule is you don't want to get their leaves wet. They have these furry type leaf, we call it a pubescent leaf. And if cold water touches it, that's what tends to turn them yellow. So I suggest when you get your African violet, you either water it from the bottom in the saucer, you fill the saucer with like a 1/4 inch and let the plant soak up the water, or you can pot it in one of these clever self-watering containers. These things are great because basically you fill the inside with water and then you pop this, because this is a porous clay that will wick the water up into the plant. And it helps if you plant it directly in the pot. Now, I suggest that you plant it, they like their own soil, African violet soil specifically. It's well drained and it's formulated for African violets. Also, they like their own food, so they want to be fed with African violet food. You want to make sure you feed periodically during the growing season. Now in the wintertime, you don't really have to worry about it. I start usually feeding my houseplants the end of February and early March. Also, they don't require that much light. Bright to medium indirect light. I put mine in a northeastern exposure. My house, unfortunately, is not brightly lit. I face north and I have medium to low light, and they adapt very well to that light source. Now, flowers will last quite a long time on an African violet, and they bloom periodically throughout the year, and they hold their blooms very long. Typically, when they're done blooming, I just snip them down to the base and just let them be in their happy little place in bright to medium indirect light, or even, like I said, they adapt to medium to low light as well. And feed regularly, and in a few months they'll regenerate and bloom again for you. Now this one, a Rieger begonia. Most people are familiar with Rex begonias, and there's also non-stop begonias, which have like a cabbage rose type flower. This is a Rieger begonia. It also has a fleshy stem, and it has these pretty rose-like flowers that are in clusters. These bloom throughout the winter time. Also, you'll see them in the summertime at your garden center. They're great for shady containers. I like bringing them indoors in the wintertime because they brighten up a cloudy day like today. They'll take bright to medium indirect light. I even could get them in medium to low light to do well. They don't bloom as long as they would if they had bright to medium indirect light, but they bloom sufficiently. Again, you want to let them dry between waterings. They like it on the dry side because they have this fleshy stem. You don't want to overwater them. I always like to make sure you don't get your leaves wet anyway. And the water in the wintertime coming out of your faucet is so cold, it really is a shock to the system of the plant. So that's why I always like to let the tap run. So it's a little room temperature, slightly warmer, never ice cold water, because in the wintertime when you're watering your plants and you see yellowing, it's one of many things. And one of the factors is really cold water. Another thing I like about them is they come in a wide variety of colors. So you kind of can play around, and you can complement your plant color with your house color if you wanted to. They come in pinks, yellows, oranges, red even. So there's a plethora of colors to choose from, and they'll bloom throughout the winter for you. So Gerber daisies are great because they have these big, beautiful, brightly colored flowers. And the thing I like most about them is they clean the air. So they take the toxins out of the atmosphere of your home. And they're one of the few flowering plants that does that. You basically want to keep it in bright to medium indirect light. They're not too good in lower light situations, but they love bright sunny window. Temperatures, keep them on the cool side. You want to make sure that you don't overwater them and don't underwater them. They can be a little finicky Basically, you want to just touch the top of the soil. When the soil feels slightly dry, then you want to water it. I like to keep the leaves dry on these as well, so I'll water it from the bottom. That's the easiest. They'll bloom for a long period of time indoors, and then come the springtime, in the middle of May, you can put them outdoors. They like to be fertilized with acid fertilizer, and you can get them to bloom in part sun. Thank you, Blue. She agrees as well. You can get them to bloom in partial sun throughout the summer months. Bye-bye. Kalen Diva is a relative of the kalanchoe plant, and it produces double flowers, whereas the kalanchoe produces single flowers, and it's a succulent. And it's really easy to take care of. Again, likes it on the dry side, bright to medium indirect light, and it'll bloom approximately 6 weeks throughout the winter time. And they give you bright color. It's like a big pop of color. This pretty pink, it's very soft. It also comes in reds, yellows, oranges. Allow the plant to dry thoroughly in between each watering. So basically when the soil is dry to the touch, that's when you water it. They're not too finicky as far as getting their leaves wet, like some of the other plants. And these little mini guys are great for terrariums as well. So I showed you 4 plants today: the African violets, the Rieger begonias, Kalen divas, and the Gerber daisies. 3 out of the 4 plants love to be on the dry side. That's what makes them so easy and low maintenance. The Gerber daisy, slightly dry, but every one of them gives you beautiful pop of color throughout the winter months. So I hope you give one of these guys a try. I'm horticulturist Tina Suttilano-Kane. See you next time for In the Garden.